marketing gets handed a new number from the top down next year for budget. Sometimes there's like a bit of back and forth negotiating what that number might be based on new tools that you want to buy, or maybe sometimes you get handed a bigger number, then you're just like coming up with tools that are going to renew or not renew. And similar to headcount, like sometimes, there's discussions about business numbers and objectives, and then this back and forth. And then to hit those numbers, the marketing team will say like, well, we need 2 extra headcount. We're kind of making that business case a little bit there too. And I feel like that angle is what leads to tech debt sometimes, where we get handed this budget and marketing, and then we figure out after what are the tools that we want based on that budget versus doing it the other way around. Whereas these are the things we're trying to do next year. These are the gaps that we have in being able to accomplish that from a person, a people, and a tech standpoint. And this is the budget that we need to make those goals. Have you been on like both sides of that discussion? Do you relate to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so relatable because I think that is unfortunately how a lot of tech companies operate in a very reactive sort of a
Yeah.
manner where, hey, we need these are our goals. We need tech or people to make it possible. And you make really quick, sort of unthoughtful decisions when you fall into that trap. And so I think when it comes to Martech specifically, this is why I feel that MOPS leadership or just like your MOPS team needs to have a seat, but not just a seat, a voice at the table of these strategic conversations. And oftentimes I find that that's the team or the marketing org is just not set up that way. The partnership becomes much more transactional and reactive and like almost service oriented to say that, hey, MOPS team, we need to execute this. Go help us do it. And then they kind of figure it out rather than having them be involved as part of the conversation up front. And then they can actually guide the team to say, okay, well, this is, based on our goals, this is what our current capabilities are and how we can support. This is where we're gapped. And then they can kind of develop a more well-informed roadmap for Martech to support the strategic goals. And they can also counter certain things as well if they have that early voice up front. And I find that the reason why oftentimes MOPS doesn't have a seat or a voice at the table of these strategic conversations is usually one of 2 reasons. One, either you don't have a strong MOPS leader in place to really they might have the seat at the table, but they're not actually using their voice and
Hmm.
really sharing those insights with other senior leaders and cross-functional leaders. And then the other, which is I think the more common reason, is your systems and your workflows and your processes are just not set up to provide MOPS that seat at the table. It's very much, your processes are very much, hey, once you have everything figured out, submit a brief and then send it over to your MOPS team. And so with that kind of a system in place, you're just not giving your, MOPS teams the opportunity to actually engage in that dialogue and that strategic dialogue and really work towards a more unified roadmap and plan for your company.
Yeah, definitely. It is a topic that comes up a lot with guests on the show. This idea of marketing ops being more strategic and making part in those decisions versus being just the execution center, like the ticket center where we just help marketing and sales teams, get campaigns through the door. I think to your point, there's totally an argument for having marketing ops folks having a seat at strategic discussions, especially budget discussions when those happen frequently throughout the year, especially in the year end cycle, where we do have discussions about like, our metrics are increasing by 30% next year, and we need to do these 5 new things that we've never done before. We don't know how much these tools are going to cost to get us to do that, or how much extra people we're going to need to do that, but let's just put a number in the budget. Let's see if finance approves it or not, and we'll just kind of go with it, versus having a marketing ops person scope out this thing that we're trying to do next year. Someone who has experience potentially doing this in the past, or has counterparts, or is willing to do the research to figure out from a tooling standpoint, what do we need? Where are the gaps? Where are the people gaps? I think that makes a lot of sense there.